So what are your current price targets for Bitcoin? Did the price targets change, or did you make up your mind, or is there any new?
In January, my target that I put out was 220,000 a coin in 2021. So still sticking to that target. Second quarter, we still have some time left in the second quarter. I still think we're going to see some nice action here.
Yeah.
And yeah, nothing really has changed.
I think you could, the thing about price is, rather than focus on price, is how you get to those sort of prices is look at the asset classes, the total addressable market that Bitcoin has, like what it's going to displace and how much value that represents currently. So it's going to eat those. It's about to, it came close to eating silver's market cap recently, but then this pullback has kind of taken it away from that. But it'll overtake silver, then it'll overtake gold, then it'll overtake bonds. Then, these are the markets that it's going to eat out of. So, that's how you come to the price, because know the absolute supply of Bitcoin. So how much does it have to increase in price in order to capture that value?
So what do you think? Will governments or central banks come out and say, hey, we stacked some Bitcoin just in case it catches up?
Right. Well, the game theoretical layer in the Bitcoin protocol stack tells us that the size of the players will continuously go up. So we've got endowments, we've got corporations, we've got high net worth individuals, we've got hedge funds, mutual funds. So next is sovereign wealth funds. I think the Singapore sovereign wealth fund is already active.
Yeah, they did.
And then central banks, and then it's kind of like game over.
And also, I think as we get to these institutions now and then to the nation states, it's going to reflect exactly the early adoption of what happened in the individual space. It was individuals that first came to Bitcoin. Max spoke at that very first Bitcoin conference of 2011. What you saw were like hackers, geeks. Bitcoin was used by people on Silk Road buying, drugs or illicit activities, prostitutes, stuff like that. Those were the early adopters of Bitcoin. You're going to have the equivalent in the nation state level. It's going to be those who are like, the porn industry, maybe not able to use credit cards or their legacy financial system. So it's going to be those who are cut off or sanctioned states. It's going to be like the likes of Venezuela, Iran, all those sort of countries that can't access SWIFT or the financial grid. And I think you're going to start there, and then it's going to rise up to, ultimately, the U.S. will be probably the last to capitulate on a nation state level.
So Peter Thiel said something similar. He said the U.S. government should look up Bitcoin because it's a weapon, actually. So what do you think? The first nation, the first government who embraces Bitcoin, will they deliver the next world currency, or what do you think? What's your take on this?
Right. Well, we started talking about what we call the global hash war more than 2 years ago now in Keiser report. So I think we were the first to talk about, in response to the idea that countries are going to ban Bitcoin, we said, no. The much more probable that they'll engage in a hash war and try to compete with each other who's got the most Bitcoin. That's the most likely outcome. So, as Stacy points out, the countries that are victimized by U.S. dollar hegemony and U.S. dollar sanctioning and censoring of the SWIFT network, the most would most likely be the ones to adopt Bitcoin first. So you've got Iran is in the mix. They've already got apparently an interesting percentage of the hash rate. China, Russia, Latin America countries, these are all countries that would be likely countries to embrace Bitcoin as a way to opt out of the US dollar. And so that's the hot list of groups right now. I've heard a good case for Japan being the one to really break the spine of this and start getting into Bitcoin. So that's I think what we'll see.
That would be a game changer, actually. So what do you think? We are still in a will we see the super cycle, or do you think we're still in a 4-year cycle?
Oh yeah, well, the super cycle is something that I'm not really totally up to speed on. There is only one cycle, that's the Bitcoin cycle, and it's everything else is getting eaten up by Bitcoin and stack sats and let Bitcoin do for you what you couldn't do for yourself, and that is get stinking rich. And I think anytime people get too granular about timing and cycles, they miss out because they're trying to time the market. So I just say, look, do dollar cost averaging, just stack sats, and be patient, and don't try to get too cute, too fancy, try to time it, go into leverage, because people say, oh, I'm sure that I understand this leverage and this cycle, so I'm going to leverage, I'm going to go all in. Okay, well, you were wrong, and now you get wiped out, and now it's back to square one. So don't fall into that trap. Just stack stats. Don't buy shit coins. Just buy Bitcoin. Be patient. Watch the world go up in flames. Be like the little doggy in the meme who says this is fine. And that's it.
I think in terms of like a super cycle, I think we're in the beginning of the hyper Bitcoinization phase. And yeah, like there's no going back from that. Like, you know, .com 1.0, the bubble, you know, of the late 90s, that was a similar sort of situation that we've had up until now with Bitcoin. Is like the real innovation was TCP/IP, right? And everybody was like, oh, it's these internet, they got to get the .com domain name and like pets.com, and it's going to be huge, like billions of dollars. And they didn't understand the value of what they actually had, what the internet actually was. And you had those famous like Brian Gumbel on one of these morning shows on CBS was asking in 94 or 95, like, what is this email anyway? Like, why, what do you want an internet for? What's this all about? And you're seeing those same sort of questions. You saw, it's done the rounds recently of 1999, a Forbes article saying, get ready for the coal to be burned for the internet and stuff like that. And then the crash happened and everybody was in despair, and people thought it was over, that like the internet fad was over. And then now there's no going back. There was hyper internetization. Everybody's on the internet. Even a country like Egypt, remember Mubarak tried to turn it off. It failed. He had to turn it back on because everything was online. So all his, like the industrialists made him turn it back on. So like that's going to be the same thing. It's like there won't be the ability of any government to turn it off. And even if they could, like everybody, the entire system would like overthrow the government to like get it back on, just like what happened with the internet in Egypt.
You see, the problem is that Bitcoin and narcissism don't mix. If you're a narcissist, you don't understand Bitcoin because it's decentralized and there's no center and there's no me.